Hi, I'm Andy and this is Chilli. Welcome to Snowdonia. We're at a mountain called Cader Idris, which translated from the Welsh means the chair of Idris, a mythical giant.
The reason we're here at this mountain is because it's a place that reminds me of one his disciples visited. In the Bible, Matthew tells the story of how Jesus and the disciples took a journey north to a region called Caesarea Philippi. It was a highland area dominated by a mountain called Mount Hermon. Just as Chilli and I are enjoying a bit of a break, Jesus and the disciples would have been getting away from the crowds and enjoying the cooler mountain air and pleasant surroundings. This is Cader Idris. It rises to 2,930 feet, only about a third of the height of Mount Hermon, but still pretty impressive. Local legend says that some of the lakes on the mountain are bottomless, and that if you sleep on the summit you'll wake either a madman or a poet.
Other mythology tells of the hills of Cader Idris as the hunting ground of Gwynapnath, the king of a fairy-like people whose huge howling hounds foretold the death of anyone who heard them, the hounds herding the person's soul into the underworld.
Similar legends surrounded the disciples as they entered the foothills of Mount Hermon. Before the Roman occupation, Caesarea Philippi had been known as Panis, the birthplace of the half-man, half-goat Greek god Pan. It was said that Pan was born there in a quarry, the source of the river Jordan. Pagan mythology considers the places where water flowed out of caves as the entry points to the underworld, the abode of the dead. Pan is where we get our word panic from. The Greeks believed that if Pan was accidentally woken from his afternoon nap, he'd let out a spine-chilling scream that would cause fear and panic in anyone that heard it. Herod the Great's son Philip made Panis his capital, renaming it Caesarea Philippi, making a place to honour both himself and to worship Caesar. So this is the place I wanted to show you. It's called the Golaurin Slate Quarry. It sits on the slopes of Pen Garn, just to the west of Cader Idris. The quarry was mined for 50 years and was abandoned just over a century ago. Since then, the lower levels of the quarry have flooded, leaving what is now known as the Blue Lake, which can only be accessed through a dark, dank tunnel. Let's go and take a look around. Come on, Chills, this way. The mountains are a great place to get away from everything and spend time out, and it's probably why Jesus took his disciples on this trip to Caesarea Philippi, away from the religious centre of the country and into the very heart of the Roman-influenced pagan society, the perfect spot to get the disciples thinking. While they were there, he asked them this question: who do people say I am? This must have been a hot topic at the time, because straight away the disciples came back with an answer. They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." There was something about Jesus that reminded the people of what the prophets of old foretold of the coming king. However, the people only saw Jesus as perhaps another prophet. They didn't get that he was their saviour, the king, the one God had promised them. You know, the same is true today. People say he was a great teacher, a kind person, a doer of good deeds who lived a good life. He is seen as a prophet and a holy man. However, it's hard for most to cross the line and call him God. Jesus continues, "But what about you? Who do you say I am?" For Peter, one of the disciples, the penny drops. He answers, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." This was a dangerous statement. It put Peter at risk. Remember, there was a Roman occupation. Caesar was king. To say that Jesus was the true king was treason in the eyes of the Romans, punishable by death. So what about you and I? This is the point you might want to switch off or watch something else, because in a moment I'm going to challenge you to answer the very same question. Before you answer, a word of caution. If we declare Jesus is God's Son, the true King, that can put us at odds with family, friends and society today, in the same way that it did for Peter and the disciples. Jesus says to you, "Who do you say that I am?" What Jesus said next must have made quite an impact as they stood there with the rock quarry and Mount Hermon towering above them. "I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. We need to remember the gates of hell are the devil's defence. He knows that ultimately he's defeated by Jesus. His gates are a last-ditch attempt to keep what he thinks belongs to him. But Jesus has another plan, a plan to free those held captive. Jesus says quite simply that his church has the keys to open the gates that keep people as prisoners and release them, to set them free. Chilli and I are going to enjoy a few more days here in the mountains before heading home. Jesus and the disciples were soon to be heading back south. Jesus was on his way to make the ultimate sacrifice for you and me by dying on a cross. Jesus didn't come as a military leader to overthrow the Roman army and drive out the pagan influences surrounding the people as many were expecting, but he did come to save his people. He did it by sacrificing his own life for ours. The question Jesus posed on the day in Caesarea Philippi demands an answer from us today. Who do you say that I am?